So you want to know the ins and outs of managing your money. Well, lucky for you, you're just in time for another episode of Master Your Finances with certified financial planner professional Kurt Baker. Kurt and his panel of experts are here for you and will cover topics from a legal and personal standpoint. They'll discuss tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University. Now, let's learn how we can better change our habits with Kurt Baker.
Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Master Your Finances, presented by Certified Wealth Management and Investment. I am Kurt Baker, a certified financial planner professional located in Princeton, New Jersey. I can be reached through our website, which is www.cwmi.us, or you can call me directly at 609-716-4700. This week, very pleased to have with us Bob Morrison, the owner of several ServPro franchises. He's a partner with First King Enterprises since 2002 to now. And prior to that, he'd worked for Honeywell International and then as a senior account specialist and also Electronic Systems USA, among many other things I can see down here. One that kind of caught my eye here. He's also a certified Star 3 spin instructor. So I know when I go take spin classes, they about kill me. So I know that's a lot of work. So you've got a wide range of expertise. You graduated from the American University and have a MBA from Wagner College, as well as an energy auditing HVAC systems and control from University of Wisconsin-Madison. So again, you got kind of a wide range of expertise. And I guess I'll start off with just kind of asking, how did you kind of get involved back at, around 2002 in the First Knight Enterprises? And then you have all these ServPro franchises, right? So can you kind of walk us through why you decided to do it, how you started the whole process, in the very beginning?
Sure, absolutely. I was at that point about 10 years into my Honeywell second Corps of Duty, and I was kind of trying to decide what I don't think corporate life was really made for me. So I was thinking about another way to proceed with my working life. And my neighbor, who was also in the same situation, we started chatting over what our goals were long term, and realized we had a lot of common interests and experiences that supplement each other. And after going through a very fun research, looking for different opportunities, we finally realized that the restoration industry in general, which we didn't know existed, would be kind of a good fit for our collective skill sets. And it kind of made a lot of sense. So we did a lot of due diligence and interviewed with several other restoration companies that had franchised opportunities. And ultimately, our path took us into the ServPro field.
Would you mind kind of, because I know that's you said something. I know it sounds simple when you said it, but I know it's fairly complicated. Can you share with us maybe some things that you learned that maybe you didn't know before you started doing this exercise of researching a franchise and then kind of narrowing it down? Because you're basically becoming, you're kind of marrying each other, right? And there's a lot that has to go on between what you need to learn and what they need to learn about you. Can you give us a little bit of like how that worked out and how you kind of landed on ServPro and what kind of was the differentiator for you and so forth?
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, that was kind of the fun part of the process. What's interesting for somebody that may be interested, at least at that time, it may have changed, but for in the franchising community, apparently, because there were some bad things that occurred in the 1970s, the federal government changed what the process is to be a prospective franchisee. And so if somebody was interested to be interested in a specific industry, and truthfully, we had fun. We looked in coffee houses and salad places and a whole bunch of different options. And in the process, if someone was so inclined, they could send in some information to the franchisor, and they would then provide you a document that would have the license agreement, a list of, for the last 10 years, for current and previous franchisees that you could call and speak to them and say, do you like this? Do you not like it? And get a lot of information to help you make a business decision. And I found that to be kind of fun and invigorating at the time. And as going through the process, it helped me realize pretty quickly where some of those franchises may not be a fit for myself and my business partner. And when we went through the restoration field, the thing I liked about it was I didn't need to have a brick and mortar storefront that would be predicated on foot traffic coming in. Like if say it was a coffee shop where you're only as good as the anchor store allows you to drive it. I like the fact that this was a service business and not relying on people physically coming into and out of our place of business. So that's kind of how it started. And given the fact my background was I was in selling services in previous working lives, it kind of made a nice segue for where I was interested to head to.
And I'm sure it sounds like some of those interviews with other franchisees helped to make your decision. That sounds to me like extremely valuable, right? Talking to somebody who's kind of already been through the process and started it up and kind of tell you what you thought was good or bad.
Absolutely. It's kind of interesting you say that because there was another franchised restoration company that I was very interested in. I'd heard about them before. And the gentleman that was representing the franchisor, we had a couple meetings and I was very interested. And when I was asking the gentleman where the geographic opportunity would lie, and he was being very evasive. Well, I come to find out later that what happened was they had another prospective franchisee hooked and ready to bring in the fish into the boat at the last minute. And that's when we were speaking to him. So he was being evasive. But what we finally found out was that the other franchisee left him at the altar. And that's kind of when we kind of migrated at that time. That's when we discovered ServPro, and it had a very good, happy ending for us. But it was part of the process, and it was very educational, invigorating. It was fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. Yeah. So that, I mean, and to me, I mean, franchises are nice because they kind of break the way for you a little bit. They have a template of what works and what doesn't work, and kind of give you the blueprint of where you go. The rest is up to you, right? So now you're a happy franchise owner, right? So once you kind of signed the deal, what kind of happened next, and how did you kind of start things up and get rolling at that point?
It was kind of it's interesting in the process, at least at that time in ServPro Industries is located in Gallatin, Tennessee, outside of Nashville. So for at least at that time, I'm sure it's changed, but at that time, each new franchisee that just signed the license agreement, they would have to go as part of the process. They'd have to physically be in those days for 2 weeks. I think it's now longer, but you would be there every day of the week for classroom sessions and other hands-on training because that's the only way. It's a new industry. It's the only way you could learn. So we'd go down there and you'd learn every aspect of it. And in our business, they had 3 aspects that needed to be learned and digested. There's an office portion doing all the books and the office portion of it. There was the field or the production side, the people that the work that we would provide. Then there's the marketing or business development side. So there were different degrees of how those 3 pillars would have to be learned and make you capable in those regards.
So which of those 3 did you find the most challenging coming into this new process?
Well, that's kind of fun. It's kind of funny because my business partner, who is a degreed engineer and came from the construction background, I was more of a marketing person. That was my background and skill set. So I migrated more towards that side of it because it was just natural for me. And I didn't quite have the proficiency. Putting me in the office for a extended period of time was not probably where I'm doing the best. I'm kind of like climbing the wall. So
right.
I was more about going out and developing business opportunities out there. And so that kind of worked for me. And that's where I really found most sizzle was from my perspective.
Okay, that's good. So it sounds like a good blend between the two of you and expertise, right? Is what it sounds like between you and your partner. So now once you got started, so what kind of happened next as you started to actually roll out the business itself?
Well, it's interesting. When we first started, you had to have a physical warehouse to put your equipment and all that kind of stuff, and a place to have your office. And at that time, it was just kind of small because that's all we needed at the time. But when there was when there was an issue. And again, the type of work we do primarily, I'd say about 80% of our work is paid directly or indirectly through the insurance channel. So if it's whether it doesn't discern between vertical markets, whether it's Mrs. Jones's home, a hospital, a school, we still have the same issues that have to be addressed: water damage, fire, smoke. We do duct cleaning and that kind of stuff too. So we have to be available. And because Servpro Industries has some national accounts with insurance companies, one of the things that we have to do to comply, if there is a water damage in the facility, we have to be able to be on site within 4 hours, worst case, to address it, unless they say come back tomorrow because the kids are sleeping or something. But that's how Servpro sells our service nationally to insurance carriers. With that in mind, it was myself and my business partner when we originally started, and as we started to grow, we finally had to get a technician. And it was kind of funny when the gentleman that came in to interview, and I would describe him as being probably about 70 pounds overweight. Our office had no air conditioning. It was in July. And when he came in a 3-piece suit, as we were speaking to him, you could see the sweat kind of just going down. And I felt bad for him. I appreciated his concern, but he didn't need to be that dressed. But so we went through the whole thing, and we basically had to ask him, do you understand what this job requires? You have to be available. And if you're interested in doing it, do you understand what that, and he kind of nodded his head. And I will say this, when I went with the national training, the woman who was the CEO of Servpro Industries at the time, she said, when you're hiring new people, she said, for every 17 people you keep, you'll have one keeper, excuse me. So that was what the ratio was. And you know what? She seemed to be pretty spot on. So to make the long story short, when we hired that gentleman, we got a call on a weekend. We called him on his cell phone. He didn't respond. Myself and my business partner just happened to be in a hospital. We addressed it, got the problem. He came in Monday morning. We said, he was whistling in like nothing happened. I said, well, where were you? Well, I was drinking beer at the firehouse.
Oh, no.
Well, that's not going to work for us. So that's a part of the learning process. And you have to understand how you're going to get people that meet your needs and be available.
Well, that's fantastic, Bob. I appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We will be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, certified financial planner professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm Kurt Baker here with Bob Morrison, owner of Servpro, and we are talking a little bit about like how you got into the franchise business and picked Servpro through that vetting process. And I thought it was interesting that they told you that you're going to keep basically 1 out of 17 employees that you hire. I would think that your job's kind of, from my perspective at least, like one of the more difficult out there, right? People are going to come in and think, oh, I'm just going to, like you just described to your first hire, dressed in a suit, think it was like, you're not going to go there and like just type on a computer all day long. This is like, you're going out of the field. This is a very different job than some people might expect. And so that's interesting. So you started hiring people. It's just you and your partner initially doing these jobs. So what were some of the things you learned on your early jobs as you started to go out and do? I mean, training is one thing, right? But actually doing this and going out and seeing things, what were some of your early jobs where you felt like you started to really learn what they were teaching you at the down in Tennessee, and then actually performing it on the job yourself?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't realize in my past life when I worked for Honeywell, one of the things that we did was temperature control, and we were very involved and regulated by the industry standards for the HVAC industry and all that kind of stuff. When I learned a little bit more about this industry, which was totally new to me, that there is similarly a organization that has very defined standards and how we have to properly, whether it's dry, clean sewage, there's very defined protocols that we need to comply with to meet or exceed to meet the insurance standard, and the insurance is regarded as the highest level of the standards. So with that in mind, it was a very interesting learning experience. And, as a result of that, we, because especially when we first started, we had some commercial and institutional jobs, but especially when we first started, we had a lot of, the lion's share was more residences, excuse me. And, if someone had a water job, when they would arrive to their home, there's some paperwork that we would have to execute before we could proceed, saying we have to understand that, there's some requirements that we would make sure that we have to comply with. We don't want to be around any specific things, any guns around your jewelry and when it was kind of funny when one of the first jobs we got was up in Essex County in North Caldwell. And the gentleman that lived there he happened to be a permanently disabled correctional officer. And when we were going through the protocol asking, are you around any guns? He kind of he started like wincing and stuff, and we kind of asked him, well, and I said, well, so if you have guns, we don't want to be around them. We can't go into the area where it's affected if that's the case. But so he got it. And it was kind of funny where he lived. He actually showed us, it was a few blocks from, if you ever saw the old TV show, The Sopranos, on the show where it used to be Tony's house, was right nearby where the loss was. And we, of course, had a good time of taking a couple pictures. But no, it was interesting. But to your point, there's a lot of different things that each time you have to learn and comply with to make sure, because if God forbid somebody did not comply, not only could you potentially lose a particular opportunity, but you could be not in good standing with whoever the insurance carrier. They could put you on a national list. And so we understood that, and we're very pleased and blessed that we're able and embrace it and have a very good reputation as a result of it.
No, that's great. So in those circumstances, did they just remove? I mean, if they had a place where they were storing, whether it's jewelry or some other item that you can't necessarily go in, is that kind of like on them to, hey, look, we can't go in there until this is removed, or this is, or I mean, somebody has to rectify, right? I mean, if a jewelry store floods at some point.
Well, and when it gets kind of weird, because we serve a couple masters. We serve the homeowner, Mrs. Jones, but we also have to. There's an insurance adjuster that would be assigned to it, and we'd have to make sure that he or she is satisfied with what we're doing. And if it was an area that, say, it was a water loss, and if they were unwilling or unable to move to give us access to do what needed to be done to dry it, then potentially they could lose their insurance coverage from their carrier. Mm-hmm. And they have to understand that's a business decision they would have to make that we can. And, for every job we do, it's a lot of pictures. There's a lot of detail that we have to provide to give to the insurance company to make sure that everyone's satisfied and we get paid and the claims is satisfied, et cetera.
No, that's good. Because I mean, I think, I guess my next thought would be, did you learn anything about the insurance industry itself? Because people sometimes think they're covered for items that they may not necessarily be covered for. Anything you want to share about that? Maybe that can help people that have insurance to make sure they have the proper coverage on their homeowners that they might not realize that they've got an exclusion they didn't realize they had.
It's funny you say that. One of the first early jobs that we received, and they had it was a townhouse, and they had water damage. They just literally bought into and moved into that house, I don't know, 3-4 weeks before when this occurred. And apparently, and I learned through the process, because again, it was still new for me then, but that the reason the water damage occurred was the sump pump failed. And unfortunately for them and for the carrier and for the agent, all of which shall remain nameless, they did not give them the option to purchase sump pump failure coverage. And for peanuts, that would have covered them if it was included in their policy, but it wasn't something that they were told, and they ended up, finding out the hard way. The bill was put on their front yard because the insurance carrier kind of said, "Oh well, you didn't," they neglected to to get that coverage. So it happens. To your point, though, it happens more frequently. I think people are getting more educated, and it's not as much. That's more the exception, not the rule, but it happens.
Yeah, no, I know it's a fairly common misunderstanding about things. I mean, I think, things like flood insurance, I know people don't realize that it's not covering things below grade, right? They think, oh, I'm all set. Well, no, you need to make sure you've got the other coverage, because that's not, if you're based on floods, that it's still not going to help you that much. So that's a common misunderstanding about that. That's what kind of alerted me. I'm like, wait a minute, people sometimes don't realize that what sounds like it's a coverage may not necessarily be a coverage unless you detail it out. What if this happens? Am I good? Right. And then, then you call the company or the agent, whoever is running it, and they can just verify that, yes, if this occurred, you're going to be in good shape.
Well, and I'll tell you too, that's interesting. It's a good point that I didn't realize this till I got in this. But if for whatever reason, if God forbid you had an issue in your home and your carrier, for whatever reason, decided they were going to give you coverage, but it would be, in your estimation, peanuts compared to what you think it should have been, your options are you can go back to your carrier, and for argument's sake, you thought it should be a $10,000 claim, but they're covering $1,000. It doesn't give you a lot of options, so they do have an opportunity in some cases to be of service, what they call public adjusters. And those people work for the insured, going against the insurance company, and to fight and hopefully reach an amicable settlement. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that's an option a lot of people didn't know, and I didn't know until I got into this industry too.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point that there's always an industry kind of helping in some way, shape, or form. If you don't think you're getting a fair deal, it's important to get educated about it, because as you just pointed out, there are options where people come in and help you. Because I know a lot of people are not very confrontational, especially when you're dealing with a large company. They're like, I don't want to deal with all that. But there are people that will step in and help you, and kind of share in the savings that you get and things like that. So there's really no downside to having somebody come in usually and interviewing them. And if you really don't think it's right, reach out and try to get a little bit educated about that. But you're absolutely correct. And you also mentioned about 20% of the people are not covered by the insurance, right? Is that typical of the homeowners, commercial? They just forgot. Why do you think that is? Because in my opinion, I want to be covered as much as I can, because that's a catastrophic event, right? And yes, they would try to do that, right?
Some of the 20% that I'm alluding to is things that are not disaster. There's stuff that is we do like mold remediation. In some cases it's covered, and sometimes it's not for different reasons. There's stuff we do, duct cleaning, which is not covered by insurance. So we would do work that is usually, it sometimes is covered. If there's a fire and there's soot in there, we would have to clean the ducts. But sometimes there's work and we also do deodorization and things that may not be insurance related, but are value. We had do you remember back, what was it, in the late 2010s, around 2010, when they made smoking illegal in public bars and
oh yeah, that was kind of a graduated thing. It happened over a period of time. I don't remember exactly, but I know what you're talking about, right? So now, I remember going into bars when they stopped that. Then you become hypersensitive to it if you're a non-smoker, right? If the place was full of smoke, last year, and there's no smoking, and you're walking in as a non-smoker, you become hypersensitive to that. I know I did.
And you're right. And what happened when that happened, there was a place that was incorrectly referred to as a gentleman's establishment, but I don't think there are any gentlemen anywhere near the place. But the owner, because he was concerned when they changed the smoking regulations, he wanted us to deodorize it and get the smoke out of there, because people may feel compelled to light up a cigarette if they're around, they smell the odor. They might just be, so we went there and we did it. The joke was, we were teasing, saying we want to make sure our guys don't fall in love with that place. We'll never get them out there, I'm joking. It's not true.
Right, I understand. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, we're going to go through some more of this in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm Kurt Baker here with Bob Morrison of ServPro, and we've been kind of talking about some of your early on things that you did and some of the projects that you did. And one of the things I've always fascinated, you have a great tagline, like it never happened, right? And so you kind of reverse things back to the way it was before. And I just know whenever, I don't know, something gets fire or whatever, I mean, I'm envisioning this. And to me, it's a pretty destructive thing, or a flood. I mean, how do you really get all that water out and things like that? I was just curious about how you do that and how you test that it's actually been done. So like, let's take this simple one. Let's say my basement floods, right? That's a lot of stuff down there that could theoretically get soaking wet. So can you walk us through the process and then how you say, when you're done, you say, hey, you're good, you're dry, you're not going to get, no mold's going to grow, all that's taken care of and things like that. And then fires. Do you want to walk us through just kind of how you do that for us so we can be a little better educated about the process?
Sure, and absolutely. And, again, the industry standards are very defined for our industry, and it's very regulated as to how to properly, if there was a flood in Mrs. Jones's home in the basement, we would go in there, we would have to first and foremost extract the water, get that out. We'd have to disinfect and leave drying equipment. And there's specific types of equipment that we would be using depending on what type of, how the water came, how it came in, what the source was, what the category of what water is it sewage, is it clean water? But through all that, we would go through a very defined process, and we would leave drying equipment. And the rule of thumb is we want to make sure that we have to leave the drying equipment for usually at least 72 hours to make sure it's at acceptable humidity requirements. Because if you don't have it within more than 72 hours, confined within 72 hours, and have it acceptable humidity requirements, that's when mold could occur, and we don't want that to happen. So it's very defined, and then as far as that's the structure and the contents in there, we would have to make, and we work with the adjuster. We would show them what we feel we can save, and if it can't be saved, we'd have two piles, and if the ones that we're able to save, we wouldn't make them like new because they're not new, but we would get to their pre-loss condition. So, sometimes people will say, I want it to be like new. I'll say, well, it's 20 years old, ma'am. I don't know. That's not realistic, but we can get to like this didn't occur, like it never even happened.
Right. So that sounds like it's quite an involved process. So again, I'm getting back to my basement scenario, right? So you've got all kinds of like valuables down there and things like that. I mean, I don't know, they might have a photo album. They might have, for those of us that are older, they might have film. I mean, some things that might, can those really be saved? I mean, if I have a VHS tape down there, I mean, how the heck do you do that? I mean, that's, to me, that would be incredible. I'm just curious about how you save some of these very sensitive things.
We do a lot. It happens frequently. There's like, for example, documents. If we've had occasions. I do a lot of work with hospitals and doctors' office. So obviously, medical records, should they be, if a sprinkler is discharged, and we would have to then. There's a whole protocol and a process as to how we would do to, if we were able to, and a lot of times we can dry them to the pre-loss condition. If in fact it's totally not savable, then that would be a different pile that the adjuster would have to, and they would reimburse the insured for what cannot be saved. But there's a very defined protocol. There's new technology in the years that has changed through the years. And, it's kind of gotten pretty neat. Some new drying protocols and equipment and stuff that years ago didn't exist, but it's made things a lot more amenable.
So it sounds pretty sophisticated. So now you kind of went through the clean water, I'll say, but what about, if it's to me, sewage would be a whole nother complex thing. Right now, you've got to really sanitize it, right? Because that could create a lot of other issues as well, health
Well,
issues.
if it's sewage, and again, in the industry standards that we must comply with and adhere to, it'll say sewage is deemed as not savable because
Okay.
of bacteria and and disease. And so obviously if it's sewage, and so if God forbid there was sewage back up in Mrs. Jones's basement and it was wall-to-wall carpeting, that cannot be saved. That has to be, it's sewage.
Okay.
It's just three categories, and that would be one that would not be savable. So the
Okay.
insurance company would then have to reimburse them to put new carpeting because it's not salvageable.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, fortunately, most of us have check valves on our sewage system, so
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't happen.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
hopefully, right?
Hopefully. Don't
Hopefully.
say always or never.
Yeah, right. I never say never because, as I told you, I was a marine engineer once, so you see all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Things fail no matter what you do; they fail. Now, another area that I thought was kind of interesting is fires, right? So, how do you deal with a fire, right? Because partial or full, or what? I mean, how do you kind of go in and assess that and do what you can there? Because obviously, some of it can't be saved; it's burned, right? So, what types of things could be saved, so to speak?
Well, again, we go, first of all, when there is a fire, sometimes we're limited as to when we can gain access because the fire department may have to do their due diligence to see what the cause, and sometimes we're held hostage to the process, just as the way it is. And then when we go through, we would, using again the same industry standards, we would discern as to whether this is salvageable, and there's some high-tech equipment, like for example, contents, if they were totally filled with smoke, we have an ozone chamber that we can take that off-site and leave them and clean them in there in this contained area that will allow us the ability to do that and to make them, like the pre-loss condition again.
So just if you don't mind, I'll go back to that. So if you put it in an ozone chamber, that it helps with smoke damage. Did I just understand that correctly?
If it's in the right, there's a lot of questions have to be answered, like what the source of the fire was.
Okay.
Is it electrical? Is it grease? And depending on what the answer to that is, there's some cases where ozone may be a solution to help that. In other cases, depending what the cause of the fire was, it may have a different answer. But that's
Okay.
one potential thing to help with that. And we do a lot of deodorization in the area, in the facility. If we're able to do it remotely, clean the walls and deodorize that, that's very commonplace. And again, we clean air duct systems too. So if there was a fire, you can clean the room, but if you don't have the air duct system clean of all the soot, it's just going to recycle it. It's going to get worse. So
you have to do everything, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah. So the fire sounds pretty interesting because that sounds pretty complex. And I didn't think about it. You have to go in and make sure they know the cause of the fire, what's going on there. So
correct. And depending on what the cause and the grade of whether it's water damage or smoke and what the source of the fire is, it has a different protocol as to how it would be remediated.
So do you ever get these two happening together where there's a fire and a water leakage damage at the same, because you have the sprinklers, right?
Well, a lot of times when there's a fire, the fire department comes in and the water comes over.
Oh, that's true.
So we get it's pretty frequently, and we do a lot of work there, and we do a lot with housing authorities, and there's a good share of fires that occur in housing authorities, and as a result, and we go through the insurance channel, so we would address it as is required.
Yeah, so it sounds like you work through a lot through the insurance company. Now, I'm envisioning another scenario where when we have these large storms, how do you guys manage this when there's a lot of occurrences, right? All at the same time. I'm pretty sure that your day can't be calendared out exactly the same every day.
No.
My guess is some days are really, really, really busy, and other days are not as busy. So how do you handle like these surge things when a lot of us need your help? The roofs are coming off, and all kinds of strange things are going on that are not good. So how do you kind of prioritize and kind of go through how you get these things taken care of as fast as you can?
When there's a catastrophic event, and that happens more frequently than I realized till I got into this business, but when that does occur, we pretty much, as a restoration company, we prioritize and A, B, C, when there is an event, we would have A potential clients, B and C, depending on, if it's people from the yellow pages and we've never heard of them, they're probably not going to get the first.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is the challenge in our industries, it's we can get labor, we get feet on the street, we can have temporary labor supervised by our trained technicians that can tell them. But the challenge is when there's a catastrophic event, it's the equipment. Because when there is a flood or something, then all the drying equipment is not, after a while, it's just gone until such time as they're made usable again. So I know like in ServPro, we have what they call storm teams that will go around the country and have more resources, equipment and labor to do it. And to go to different, like there were a lot of people down in Texas for just what was recently down there. So there's people that do that. We don't, we're pretty much more embedded and anxious to please our local clients here that we've had relationships with. So if God forbid you had an issue in your home and you called me because you had an issue, I said, well, our crews are in Texas. You're not going to probably be too excited of having that answer. So we don't necessarily choose to go down that direction, but some franchises choose to do that. It's just not what we're doing right now.
Okay, so that's on a franchise level. Well, that's really fascinating. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm Kurt Baker here with Bob Morrison of ServPro. And you've taken us through I was always curious about how, you rectify things like water damage and fire damage and things like that. Learned quite a bit. I didn't realize that smoke damage, I think they've advanced a long way on things that you guys can do out there from when I was a young engineer, so to speak. So I know there's a lot of things that happen out there. One of the things I know that is like a little unique. So like if there's an event where there's like criminal activity and things like that. I mean, you talked about the fire where they got to investigate to make sure they know the cause of it before they can actually let you in because there's an investigation that goes on. Are there any other occurrences like similar to that where unfortunately these things happen where you've got kind of the police involved and then also you guys need to be involved at some point, correct? So kind of how does that whole process work?
Yeah, and fair question, and it differs from one occasion to the next depending on what occurred. I know when we first started, I know there was a marketing group and a woman that worked for a mechanical contractor. She called me and said, "I might have an opportunity for you." I said, "Well, what happened?" And he basically said that one of the mechanics that had the company van basically pulled it into his driveway. And with pictures of his children on the dashboard, he took a gun out and killed himself. And horrific. And she basically said, "We're going to have that. The police have to do their due diligence." And this was, of course, in July. It took about a week for them to go through every aspect and have it delivered to our warehouse at the time. And given the fact it was 90 degrees and it was sitting there for a week, it wasn't very pleasant to be exposed in that environment, but it needed to be done. And, we have the technology and the ability to make it usable again. It was obviously horrific. We're not anxious for bad things to occur, but the gratifying things, you can help people in our business when you can kind of get them back in a better place than they were before.
Yeah, no. So again, it's amazing the technology is out there. And I think that's really one of the key things that I've learned is that a lot of things that we didn't think could be reversed actually can be with all the things that you guys have available nowadays. Because sometimes I remember when certain horrific events, people there's no way they can fix that. Just throw it away. It's done. But it sounds like there's some options now that didn't used to be available. I know one of the things we've all been kind of dealing with, and I'm just curious about how it's affected your industry is through the pandemic and all the things that have happened. I guess you've got kind of two sides of it. How does your work change a little bit and what have changed as far as, I guess I'll call them your opportunities from a business perspective? Have you seen some shifts in how your business operates and what those actual types of opportunities are where you're working on, what types of things you're working on that maybe you weren't working on beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of ironic in for us in our business, the winter season is usually somewhat more of the busy season because it gets cold, the pipes break, and there's a lot of water damage. Last winter, that is the winter prior to when COVID hit, it was kind of a mild winter, and we started out kind of slow as a result of that. And when COVID occurred, given the fact that we clean and disinfect, we had to reinvent ourselves to comply with what needed to be done because it was a different landscape. And we were able to do that. And we kind of offer and still offer three different levels of how we would approach a facility for a potential COVID site. Beyond door number one, there's someone that's looking for a proactive cleaning and disinfection of the facility so they can have peace of mind. And we have a whole protocol as to how we would address that, how the equipment, how the technicians would approve it, or how we would approach, et cetera. Category two would be, we're basically not sure if somebody that was infected in this facility was there, and we have a whole protocol to address that scenario. And behind door number three, when someone was infected, we have a whole category. And of course, this is the PPE and all the equipment that would need to be done to reach that platform. And what's been helpful, especially in the hospitality industry, unfortunately, as we know, COVID didn't discern between vertical markets. We did a lot of work with hospitals. We had literally 7 different hospitals I can account for that had rooms and/or vehicles with deceased COVID patients. And we had to make these functional again, those rooms and the vehicles, which we're able to do. But with what we have for, especially in the hospitality suite industry, when there's a restaurant or a bar or whatever, they would want to know that it's been cleaned and disinfected, and we would post a sign, a little sticker saying this has been disinfected. So if somebody was walking into a facility, they would not feel apprehensive in walking in there saying, "Oh, this has been clean. I feel comfortable going in there." So it helped especially in the hospitality industry, but other industries too, doctors' offices, hospitals, et cetera. It's been a good area to help in that regard.
Now, was this something you had to kind of learn a little bit because we never had a pandemic before, right? Or were these skill sets that you had, or did you modify the skill sets that you had? Because literally, like disinfecting a building, I know I got a notice at our building a couple weeks back where they essentially closed it down for an afternoon or a day. I forget what it was. I just stayed out of the building. Where they said somebody was alerted they had COVID and they're going to disinfect the entire area. I was like, okay, that's fine. But what did you learn as far as, because that had never happened before, right? Before last year.
Yeah, I think what happened a little bit was when this was new for everyone. Nobody knew what COVID was, but
right.
I think CDC devised some protocols to make sure and that everybody would understand and comply with what needed to be done. It was foreign terrain at the time, but we were quickly able to adapt, and especially the nature of our business, we have to understand what needs to get to make an area functional, safe, and clean. So, to your point, I was yesterday in Manhattan at a hotel that shall remain nameless that has been closed since COVID, and they wanted us to come in and as part of the protocols, we're cleaning. Our aspect is going to be the duct work because they wanted, I think in this case, the labor unions in there, and they wanted to have some peace of mind before they could return to work to make sure it's been functional. So we're in the process of getting the estimate out to do that. So it's kind of like there's a lot of different barriers and challenges, but it's kind of fun, and I think we enjoy it in our industry because things constantly changing, but we adapt and we and address it.
That sounds like quite a project, cleaning an entire hotel, including their ventilation system.
We're our aspect of, we were subcontract. We're only doing the ducts there, but we were doing commercial buildings. We did, right when this hit, we were a lot of office buildings. We cleaned those too. And, it'll vary, and there's different protocols as to how to go through it. And I will say too, since COVID, there's been a lot of people selling some, I will call them as electronic gizmos. In some cases they have value. In some cases they sound like they have value, but maybe don't provide that. But, there's a lot of new new devices that have been on the market, and people are buying them. Whether it makes sense or not, that varies from one situation to the next.
Yeah, I think that's true of any catastrophic event. People take that as an opportunity to sell something that may not necessarily be of value. I mean, you hear about fake PPP gear and all this
Yes.
other stuff. So I think the bottom line with all that is make sure you have a reputable provider of whatever the service is or the product is, because especially now, there's stuff slipping in there that's really not going to be of value, and that's kind of one of the issues, right? So so what do you guys see happening now? So as far as your business goes, what do you see the most of, and what do you think it's going to change this year now that we're in theory? It appears that we're going to start reopening, and maybe some more restaurants are going to start to open. And so does that provide opportunities for you similar to the hotel you were talking about, things like that?
It's interesting. Yes, I think. Well, it's in some respects, yes. I'm very active marketing to a lot of people that manage commercial buildings and with varying vertical markets, office buildings, hotels, and what I've found in some of the organizations I market to, when they have these, especially these Zoom meetings, a lot of people, because a lot of businesses are reluctant now or minimizing their office space going forward, it's going to create some different challenges. And I see the property managers I market to, they're very much nervous as to how this is going to play out, because a lot of people are working remotely. And I'll tell you, it's kind of funny, in the Zoom meeting, you'll get people, whether it's vendors, project managers, architects. I remember one architect was saying, they were asking them, how has this been affected you and your business? And he said, well, the good news is we have work. The challenge is, though, the design concept for office buildings that we had before COVID, it was kind of like very Google-esque. And they wanted big open picnic tables and, no barrier. Now it's like, I want my own space. So they have to change their whole design
concept. Everybody a little egg.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to see how it's affected everybody in a different capacity. It's been very.
So cubicles may come back, and they might be sealed now.
that seems to be where it's headed. Yeah, and it's making a lot of people nervous, and I find it from afar and interesting just to observe it and to see how it changes.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I have to agree with that. Everybody's at a different place as far as this goes. Some are like, hey, let's go back out, no problem, nothing. And the other people are like, no matter what you do, I'm nervous. And then you got everybody in between. So I think they're going to have to address everybody, right? And so that's part of what this is to try to be honest with people and really kind of come out with the facts and stuff like that. This has been pretty amazing. Any last thoughts about your business or where we're headed here in the future?
No, it's just we find it very gratifying to help people when they need it. And, it's interesting. In our business, we learned early on, we have to be available 24/7. Our offices and our crews are bilingual, and it's kind of like we have to adapt. And I kind of find that fun. And having worked for 2 Fortune 100 companies in the past, I kind of really enjoy the difference from connecting with people one-on-one, not so much going through speaking corporate speak as much as we had to in those days. And you don't need subtitles to understand what you're trying to say or what the issue is. So to answer your question, it's just been very gratifying, and hopefully we can help people. And I appreciate the opportunity to connect with everybody.
Bob, it's been amazing. I appreciate you kind of sharing that information. You got a wealth of information, and what you do is absolutely necessary and fantastic. So you've been listening to Master Your Finances. I am Kurt Baker. You can subscribe to the podcast by going to www.masteryourfinances.us. Remember, together we can master your finances so you can enjoy financial peace of mind.
That was this week's episode of Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to expand your knowledge in building and managing your wealth. Missed an episode? No worries. You can subscribe to a free weekly episode of Master Your Finances to listen to on your favorite podcasting platform. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University.